Welcome back to the Bad Deal Podcast. We're back. Episode 5. This is kind of a milestone for us. We made it to 5 episodes,
Did you say that last time?
Did
About
we?
4?
Well,
Maybe.
no, I said I was excited for the milestone of
Yes.
5 episodes.
That's right.
Oh, and that's either Jeff Bezos or Keegan Hatfield or my wife.
Could be one and the same.
Well, okay.
She can't help that
It's not
she
Jeff
lives
Bezos.
here.
It's not Jeff Bezos. It was my wife.
Unfortunately.
Way less exciting.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's
anyway.
fine, I guess.
So we're on episode 5 now, and we are excited to get back into some more Magic conversations. It's, I guess, my usual announcement section of the podcast, which is at the beginning, and then you can kind of skip past this if you don't care, is that we are going to be probably changing spots soon. We've been prepping up the other room.
We're moving to LA.
Yeah, we're moving to LA finally. In other words, we're moving across the hallway to the other room, which is going to give us more space and allow a third person to kind of jump in on the podcast. But of course, that costs a little bit of money to get everything set up, and it'll take a little bit of time. But it's coming.
Wanted a third.
We've always wanted to have one other person in here to chat and talk and
Spice things up, if
yeah.
you will.
Because, like, eventually it's going to, I feel like we've been weirdly getting more and more in agreement on things, and it's becoming an echo chamber. So we need to bring someone that kind of like, maybe like Todd, who can just like totally disagree with everything.
Yeah. Someone that will come in and be offensive and,
Yeah.
you know.
Really get me in trouble on the editing side of things.
That's why we're having Andrew Tate.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Love that guy. Straight out of the Romanian prison. He's great. He's got a beard now. Did you see the pictures of what he looks like when he got out of the prison?
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting.
His hair's bad.
Yeah, doesn't look good. I can see why he was bald and wore glasses all the time, because man, he looks like a chipmunk. So anyway, just another section of Andrew hate.
Hey.
So anyway, so yeah, we have some changes coming to the podcast soon, but until then, deal with it. We have a white background, and that's it. All right, Ben, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so speaking of things that people hate, we have 2 different themes here that are not beloved by the Magic community for the most part.
Yep.
Specifically in Commander, we have... Well, we're going to go through one by one, but we're going to start with mass land destruction as both a strategy and a sub-theme of a deck. And I'm just going to kind of give a general little breakdown here of, the actual strategy behind why you would play that. And then we're going to just have a little quick discussion about, is that something you would be okay playing with and against? And because you are on record, like a couple days ago.
I think we both are on record that land destruction was bad.
You said, and I quote, Brandon, for those of you who don't know, he hosts our play group when we play Magic. And he said, and I quote, if that is what our group comes to, you guys can find somewhere else to play. He has outright uninvited us to his house.
you always pick topics that somehow put me in a position where I said something very extreme, and then I have to walk that back in the podcast. But yeah, I did say that, and I'm excited to talk about the nuance behind that very aggressive statement.
Yep.
But also, we did talk about this in the podcast, how we really both don't like land destruction, and I don't know if you said you outright wanted some of those cards banned.
Yeah,
but
I maybe did. And here's the thing. I actually, in my research, if you want to call it that, I Googled and spent a couple minutes on each of these topics, have kind of developed a little bit of appreciation for them. Mm-hmm. Just because it's like, you kind of understand that's not just outright, I want everyone to have a bad time. There is a feeling behind it.
Okay.
And tell me. Let's flow right into mass land destruction here.
Yeah. Tell me why is this fun?
So we want to just break down what really are you doing with mass land destruction. Now, there's a couple different types, obviously, and the key word here is mass. It means you're destroying all lands or restricting all lands. I'm not talking about a strip mine, which is destroying a target problem land on your opponent's board. This is taking out everything. Mm-hmm. And so one thing I want to mention is that there's one that's the classic. It's Armageddon, destroy all lands in play. But also, I think something to talk about is like effects like Blood Moon, which turns I believe it's all basics.
It turns all basics into mountains.
So it really restricts that color. That will flow into what we're going to talk about next, which is stax as well. But you could also almost consider that a mass land destruction piece, because really what this talks about is you're going to hit them at their mana base, which is generally like the big social contract says, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't touch. You can do anything you want, but you can't touch an opponent's mana. But why would we do that? Why would people want that as their theme for their deck? And really the thing that I discovered as I was looking into it is that you want to use it to break up the tempo of the game.
Okay.
You want to take a deck that's maybe very aggressive. I mentioned Infect to you earlier today when we were talking about this a little bit, where your whole idea is you got to get out in front.
Yep.
This could almost be considered a late game strategy for Infect. You're going to say, you know what? I only killed one opponent early, but I have some Infect pieces on the board. Land destruction. I'm going to go in. I'm going to blow up everything here.
Okay.
And now I'm just going to play with what's on board. They're going to have to go back. We're all going back to square one.
Yeah.
But you're just saying my square one is better than yours because you want to play early game. So you're just taking it back to early game. So that's a big theme there. The other thing is kind of some of the obvious ones. Either if you're playing stuff like Crucible of Worlds, which allows you to play lands from out of your graveyard, you can rebuild on curve a little bit faster. Or, mana rocks, extra mana rocks, Soul Ring Signet, but then more in addition to that allows you to still have mana even after the lands are gone. So that's kind of the basic rundown there. And so what I want to talk about is, so with that in mind, how do you feel about that? If someone plays that against you, I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything. But for me, what I discovered was, like I said, it kind of gave me an appreciation for, like, you're taking something that's going to affect you and you're saying, I'm going to build my deck in a way that can withstand this kind of punishment. And I'm just going to out-grind my opponents in that sense.
Yeah. All things that are fun to do in Magic, right? Grinding, recovering from consistent attacks, things that most people look forward to on a Friday night.
Is your favorite part of Magic the first 3 turns? 'Cause what if you did that over and over?
Do you want to do that for 8 turns? Because that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Like, there's and I guess I want to clarify my previous aggressive state. Mass land destruction is a big there's a huge difference from mass land destruction to strip mining, right? Or target destruction.
Yeah. Yes.
I am all fine with target destroying lands. In fact, I think we could probably use a little bit more. In fact, let's just do some more land destruction. I think I might put some in my, decks right now. Let's get rid of, target lands.
I did look up how much a strip mine was earlier today because I was like, maybe I should just buy one. But it's still $20, and I was like, I'll find some other way to do it.
But, like, I think it makes sense, like, in some cases, if there's some powerful lands, it doesn't really make sense for our group. But I'm not going to speak for.
But you do play Gaia's Cradle.
Casually, but like that's not like that's like a tier 3, card. No one even uses that in CDH anymore, right? It's kind of dead.
That's lame.
But why would you use that card when you can like use a really pretty looking forest? Like, to me, there's no difference. But the point that I want to make is that in our play group, there's like not a whole lot of like lands you're like, oh man, that land's gonna help them win the game. I've never really had that experience. I think we actually talked about this prior to this podcast, that like Ben doesn't even have like a over $10 like land.
The most expensive land in my 8+ decks that I play is Mazavith, which is currently $6.
Yeah, which is like not even.
It's not even worth destroying.
Yeah,
it doesn't tap for any mana.
Yeah.
It just untaps. It gives one of my creatures vigilance, or makes it so that one of your creatures can't attack me, basically.
And not to say that like price point is what determines power level necessarily, but like I think there is mostly like we can all agree that like Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, or like Cabal Coffers are good lands that you'd probably consider destroying, right?
Yeah.
And if anyone has ever done any kind of land destruction, I have probably done the most because I have Yarok with Acidic Slime.
Yeah.
Acidic Slime just when it comes in the battlefield, I think it destroys an enchantment, artifact, and land.
I think it might be enchantment, artifact, or land.
Or land? Okay.
It might be all 3. I play it as well in Raikou. So.
Yeah. So I blink Acidic Slime in Yarok. So it's kind of meme, right? It's kind of mean. It's a little bit of a meme too, but like both. It comes in and like I get rid of people's lands because why not? And most of the time it's like not a big deal, but like it can be considered annoying.
So let's take it from, I think for the most part we're okay where it's like, that's an asset, that's a resource. I think it's okay to have the ability to respond to land-based threats. Yeah. But what if that is your theme? What if it is mass land destruction?
Yeah, and that's kind of where like I wanted to speak to a little bit more, but I wanted to clarify like we're not anti land destruction people. I don't think
you should have a way. In the same way that it's like you never want to build a deck that can't hit an enchantment, that can't hit an artifact. You almost don't want to build a deck that can't hit a land.
Yeah, and like you see what happens when when we stop doing that, right? Someone builds a deck that has that because why would you not fill that void? Yeah, it'd be crazy. But here's the thing, mass land destruction deck, I think, I don't know. And I think I over the time of making this podcast, like I've had this like, cause I don't think about these things that much until we started
You don't
talking
run
about
into
them.
it.
And now I'm like, well, I don't know if I have as much anger against anything anymore. I genuinely don't care if you play whatever you want. But I think the reason why the stick has probably moved to mass land destruction. Maybe it'll move to something else once we finally do mass land destruction, right? Like somebody might eventually do it.
If you can get more extreme than that.
Yeah, like I don't know anything that's more extreme than that in my opinion, but like I think that's where the stick has kind of gone right now. And I think for me, it's like, well, on a Friday night, I'm envisioning our play group, and I'm like, first off, it's super, super not fun for people who are newer to the game because you're basically saying, guess what? Your pre-con is already pretty slow. Guess what? You're gonna just do nothing. You are shutting out new players, and I want to make that really clear. You're not just stopping them; you are shutting them out. No one can convince me that a pre-con is going to be able to recover from mass land destruction as well, or even at all from that. Right? Like it's rough.
And I'm just gonna also chime in real quick here because I think that that's totally fair. But I also would like to say, let's think about the fact where instead of you're doing that to a new player,
Like
I want to hear
players.
I want to hear about you. I want to hear about you're not worried about other people at the table, but this is happening to you. So like, because I think it's fair to say that like, yeah, if I'm playing against a guy that's his third time, maybe I don't bust out the mass land destruction deck.
You
right
can
off
choose
rip.
not to play that.
You could
deck.
choose to not do that. But I'm saying like, let's say it's you, it's me, and it's other experienced players at the table.
Okay.
How do you feel about it in that setting? Still a casual setting, but an experienced setting that you know that this is something that can happen to you.
I think, and so I did think about this because I figured we would get to this point where we're like, okay, well, what happens when we talk about it in more of a competitive sense? Yeah. It's, to me, it doesn't seem like a winning strategy. I think you might win the first game you play this out, right? You knock everybody's lands out. You probably built it so you recover faster, and then you win, right? That would, theoretically, that's how you win the game. I never played a mass land destruction, so I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, but say that's what you do, right? You take everyone's lands out, you kill everybody somehow, right?
Yeah.
The next game, guess who's going to go out first? You. Because want to know why? Because you built a land destruction deck.
The moment that people find out that that's what your deck does, they're going to be pretty PO'd about it.
So that's my opinion, I think, pretty summed up, is like, I don't care if you do it, but I hope you're prepared that I'm going to have to kill you because I might recover, I might not. But if I kill you, I don't have to worry about it.
Now, my only counterpoint is that's exactly how we all feel about your Atraxa deck because you play Infect. I think you would find you don't... Now, you're not winning the game 80% of the time.
No.
But you're not losing the game 100% of the time, even though we do sometimes have to say, Brandon's going to try and kill us with Infect. We have to kill him quick.
Yeah.
So I think that there are other strategies where that is the thought process, where you are like, yeah, everyone's going to be mad at me for this. I'm just going to say that I'm going to do it well enough to overcome that. So it's like, are you uninviting this person? Are you throwing them out of your home if they play it against you? Is that still your stance?
So here's my difference with it though, right? Infect, it's like, in the end of the day, there's a couple cards that can stop it. And maybe you can argue there's ways to stop land destruction, right? But my point is that everything in the game is based off of land, right? We all know this.
Yeah.
Not
Mana
everything
is
you
the
need to
base
do
of the
in the game requires land. And if
Or-
you have someone, or artifacts.
Bingo.
Or bingo. What?
No, I was saying bingo, like nailed it.
Oh.
Like, yes, or artifacts, mana
Okay, I was
rocks.
like, wait, is there more that I don't know about?
Or bingo.
Yeah, but my point is, I think that mass land destruction is kind of the worst because it's like you're turning off the game. You're not just turning off a strategy.
Yes.
You're turning off everybody's strategy, which is to get more mana to then do stuff. So that's the difference to me.
Yes. My only thing, and here's again.
Tell me how this is fun to play.
So here's what I think. I think that landfall decks
Yeah.
are absurdly difficult to interact with sometimes because of this unwritten rule where you aren't supposed to mess with your opponent's lands. So I think there are cases where you're like, if your opponents are like, if you know that your friend is like, he's got this crazy landfall deck and like, no matter what you do, you can't break that up. I think it's okay to say that sometimes...
but is that mass land destruction
Yes.
you need, or
I'm
you
saying-
just have target land
I'm saying
destruction?
destroy all lands. I'm
But
saying
imagine
this
a play board that has all target destruction land. Do you need to have a mass land destruction deck?
if I'm playing my Raikou deck and I'm copying my ramp spell 3 times, and
Yeah.
I have 12 basic lands on turn 7.
Yeah.
Your target land, go ahead, blow up a forest.
What if we all play Armageddon?
If you only one of you needs to play Armageddon. That's my point.
Yeah.
Is like that, I think, is the way to stop those decks. And now, I'm not saying I'm going to go out and build a mass land destruction deck, but I do think the general concept of stax, which is what we are about to get into here, actually does appeal to me. I have built a stax deck list previously, and I will likely order it in the future.
But
so
I want to understand though, okay, before we move on to stacks, because I'm fine. Stacks is a much more friendly conversation. I'm happy to have.
For a second
but
here.
I just want to have a closing statement from both of us here to make it really clear where we feel about this, and maybe we can talk about maybe where people should draw the line a little bit, and maybe this is just a conversation so that people can have a conversation. I don't know, but for me, I think land destruction just feels like the most unfun, and I don't know if it's how it's fun to play either. Like I'm thinking about it for me, right? And you're right, landfall decks can go crazy. They do go crazy. And like even like and I sorry Noah that I single you out, but Noah has that like one. It's not an OP thing.
I was actually gonna call out Todd in this one.
Whatever. But Noah has that one like gate win con that like if you have this many gates you win the game, right? Not a broken. We've talked about this. Not a broken concept, but like maybe you'd be like, oh, I want to deal with that because he's gonna win the game. Blah blah blah. We're not gonna tease Noah in any way. That's a totally fair way to win the game. But like. I feel like there are situations where it's like, wow, yeah, I wish I had something to answer this with. And so I get the idea of land destruction being a viable way to play the game, but I think a deck dedicated to it only ever deserves to get bullied out of the game. And I think to counter the thing where you said, well, Trax does the same way, right? Like, in fact, we're going to have to kill you. I agree with you. Like, I do think it's something that you should bully out of the game because and you're talking about how me overcoming that. Yes. It is fun to an extent overcoming. I build decks that are mean. I build Kalia, Yuriko, and Atraxa. They're some of the most.
You know that for the most part, those create a certain sense of 3v1.
My politics are down the toilet. 90% of the decks I play just don't make the game fun for me because I have to like always challenge myself to get overstep. I like that element in the game. So if anyone was gonna like have interest in, and I did look at land destruction for a bit, and I was like, the reason why I didn't do it was like. Me overcoming it is just making it so all my friends can't play the game.
Yeah.
And I just, in the worst way possible, which is, oh man, I hope I top deck a land. Like, I don't know. Different mentality for me. That's totally my final point, I think.
Yeah. And I'm never going to say that it's super fun if this is your first ever deck. And so your only deck that you're ever going to play is land destruction. That's not a super fun time.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's a time and place for it. I don't think it's the sort of thing where it's like you should never play it because again, there are people that's like a gate theme, which is what Noah built, or Todd in the past. Our friend Todd has built. He has a Kenrith deck. It's 5 color. It does tons of landfall, and like having ways to restrict that has a time and place. And I also think. You're also destroying your own lands. You know, you're not.
I do rescind my statement that I would kick anyone out that plays it though.
Because it is, and I get it though. It doesn't always create the most fun play experience. You shouldn't play this deck every time.
It does make me want to just concede and wrap it up because I'm like, well, the sooner you're not playing this deck, the sooner I get to play the game. The sooner
you're done playing this, the sooner I can get to crying in my pillow tonight.
Yeah, like take your W and let me go play Magic. You know, I don't know. And that's maybe just me being a little bit of like a boomer zoomer, you know, where I'm just like I have these opinions that are totally unfair probably, but like
no, you're a sheep, you know.
I'm a sheep.
Everyone hates land destruction.
I have to hate it too.
How about you be unique?
You know, whatever. All right, we'll go to stacks now. I just want as long as you feel like you got what you need to say about it.
When I came in with conviction that I'm genuinely okay with these. That being said, only one of these interests me to play, and that is stacks.
Let's talk about it because stacks is a fun conversation.
It is,
which is weird, right? Because like probably a couple months ago, we would have been like a little bit different on this.
I think for the most part, people are like control as a concept. I'm talking like counter spells, things like that. If you're playing classic blue Magic of control the game, slow it down, is acceptable, but for the most part, annoying. It is pretty annoying. Stacks is kind of taking that to the next level. So what I wrote here is Stacks is all about using effects on everyone that your deck is built to handle that theirs is not. And so essentially what I always would think of it as, and how I would teach it to another person, is like, you are going to come into the game with cards that are going to add rules to the game. And so to me, kind of the quintessential, now there's a really powerful combination here that I will talk about, but for me, the one that came to mind, which was the deck that I was going to build, is Gaddock Teague.
Oh.
Who I've talked about before a little bit. This is a deck list that I have actively built where it says non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be cast. Non-creature spells with X in their mana costs can't be cast. That one's obviously not going to affect as much. And so it's just like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to play Gaddock Teague, and he's going to add this rule to the table that says, if you're casting a non-creature spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater, all your artifacts, all your enchantments, all your instants, all your sorceries that are at that threshold or higher, you can't play them.
Yeah.
So you're just going to add this rule, and I'm going to say my deck is going to just not contain a single one of those spells. So I can cast 100% of my deck 100% of the time with Gaddock Teague.
Yeah, you're just closing out a couple of
Yeah,
people.
and so you're doing the stax thing. You are coming in and you're adding rules to the game that you're hoping your opponents can't get around. I don't think I need to spend a lot of time explaining why a lot of people aren't super in on that concept.
Yeah. And there's other stack stuff too. It's
Right.
Not just that.
And so that's actually what I was exactly going to go into. You could actually consider a card that I know that you like, the new Elishanorn.
Yep.
Which says that if an opponent would play an effect where like it enters
So
the battlefield,
it's basically Yarok where it like doubles.
Yeah.
I think it's permanence, which is different.
on your side of the battlefield, which and that part's fine.
It doubles those ATBs, enter the battlefield effects,
Yeah.
right? So you're imagine you're playing a creature that says
The acidic slime, when it
acidic
enters
slime.
the battlefield, it destroys a
doubles
thing.
that, right? But then Elishanorn does a little bit extra, which is where people get a little annoyed. Is
Yeah.
she says you guys can't do that.
Yes, and like or not, that's a stax card.
Yeah.
That's a stax piece.
Yeah.
You're saying I'm gonna add this rule to the game.
Yeah.
And the really powerful one, which is kind of what I was gonna flow into here. Again, actually, it's a card called Winter Orb, and
Never heard
Stasis
of it.
Orb is similar. There's an older card. It's actually been errated, so I have a copy of the adjusted text on it.
Okay.
And it says, as long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than one land during their untap step. So it's an artifact for 2 mana.
It's a stacks artifact.
So the really powerful combination with this is Urza, Lord High Artificer, previous one. He has the ability which says that all your artifacts can now tap for blue mana. So what you do is you play this card on your opponent's end step, you tap it for a blue mana, float it, let the mana go away. Then on your untap step, Winter Orb is tapped. So you untap all your lands, you untap Winter Orb, and now all your stuff untaps like normal, and then all your opponents will not only get to untap one land per turn. That seems like not a great time for a lot of people, but I have respect for it a little bit, and I think that it could
just
be
making
fun.
it so people have so much little.
Because you're like,
Ugh.
because I think Stax is hard because of the hate it's going to draw.
Yeah.
And it doesn't provide a quick and clear win the way that, like we talked about with Infect, where it's like, you're going to draw the hate, but you also have this path where you can win the game in a turn or two.
Stacks just turns things off and makes people hate
Stax is like, I'm not just going to like make myself the threat for 2 turns. I'm going to make myself the threat for the game, and I'm going to say that my deck and my gameplay skills is still good enough where you still won't beat me.
Yeah. So I think where a lot of my hate for stacks generated from was like kind of a misunderstanding of like the point of it, I guess. Like it was very much just like, let me just make it so you can't do anything. And then, so okay, it's a kind of mixture. So like one, I didn't really love the fact that I couldn't do anything, because why would anyone love that? Right. But then there's the other element where like, and I'm not saying that I'm good at Magic. I suck at Magic, okay? But some people just decide to ignore stacks players for whatever reason. And I will say that like there's been times where like Noah will clearly be playing a stacks deck, and I'm like, he's gonna do the stacks things, guys. It's gonna happen, and then it's just like, oh, it happened. Oh no, what do we do? He's stacksing us, and it's just like, what? It's like
You're almost like, oh no, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
It's like, and I'm not saying that I'm like always on top of what people are doing. It's tough to keep track of everything, but I just get a little frustrated when the board doesn't react adequately to like, and maybe I'm a little bit over on it. Cause like with me, my brain goes to, when I see stax deck if we ever have a land destruction deck, I'm gonna be like, those are, and maybe for you it's like Brandon playing Yuriko because there was a period of time where you would like be really worried about Yuriko or something. Like people have different things that like trigger their mind.
I don't like dying out of nowhere.
Yeah, like some people just like are really bothered by Kalia existing because again she's bringing in free things, right? So we all have our little thing that we're like, nope, don't like that. But for me, it's like I stack decks I'm like immediately triggered by, and I'm like I gotta go deal with that first. And I understand not everybody thinks that way.
Yeah.
But I think you should. I think you should kill them as soon as possible. But that's me.
I do have parts of me that like being the villain a little bit too, especially with certain other people in our play group. I've kind of felt that role in our lives a little bit at times. Even like we talked about, we have a fantasy football league that you were previously a part of that I was the commissioner of. And it tended to be that I was the big bad guy repeatedly in that league.
Yeah.
Because I'm really good at it.
Which I'm not going to speak to because I'm on an NDA.
There you go.
After leaving that league.
Yes, you aren't allowed to speak on the happenings. Yeah. But so like there is part of me that is a little bit like, I know these people are all going to get mad. Yep. And I know they're going to think of me as the bad guy. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to come in and I'm going to do that to them. They're all going to be mad and want me to die. Yep. And then I'm still just not going to die. So there is a part of me where it's like, I get the appeal of that play style, and that is part of why I would play stax. I also just think it's like you're taking stuff like, and this is like landfall again, we circle back to that and how it relates to mass land destruction. Very powerful, very mainstream, very good. And you're taking something like that and you're saying like, screw that, everyone's doing landfall. It's a really powerful thing, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to restrict that. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm going to destroy all your lands. Like the one thing that you thought was safe.
But like I think, and maybe I'm trashing on land destruction again, land destruction kind of counters everything, but like it counters landfall hard, right? So probably someone that knows that you're about to play that deck wouldn't play the landfall deck. But stax, on the other hand, it's like you can play whatever deck you feel like, brother. It's
everything.
It's going to be, unless you're playing another stax deck, it's going to be like...
Yeah. And we went into the discussion when we were talking about mulligans and how it kind of like almost takes away from the downside of like if you play a 5-color deck.
My dog's barking again. Yeah. My dog is being a jerk.
So if you play a 5-color deck, the downside is that sometimes it's hard to have all that mana.
Right? He's barking at the sirens.
Yeah.
2 cops going by.
Man.
Whoa, they're Rollinsford cops.
Hopefully they don't pull in here, you know? I gambled.
Oh, they're stopping for you.
I gambled
legally.
You need to run.
You need to run.
All right, so we had some sirens,
some cops went by,
some dogs barking. Yeah. So
we're back at it. You're talking about the 5-color decks.
And so my whole thing was like with a 5-color deck, and they related to mulligans when we talked about that is like, well, if you allow people who play 5-color decks to have more mulligans to kind of help them out, we want them to play the game. You're allowing them to just take away the whole downside to playing a 5-color deck. Yeah. Which the downside of playing a 1-color deck is you just have access to a fifth of the cards as someone who plays a 5-color deck. And so what I like about stax is you're almost like, and this is how it affects where it's like using a Blood Moon in a mono red deck that already is okay to have all mountains. You're saying, what if we all did? So it's about like further taking those decks to me that have every advantage, 5-color decks, landfall decks that get these advantage of being really powerful, being heavily supported in the format. And you're saying like, I'm going to give you a downside you didn't know existed.
Do you think there are more egregious versions of stax? Because for me, like Blood Moon's not a big deal. Like it's annoying, but
you can remove it, and you have other, your Arcane Signet gives you the colors. Yeah. I absolutely exactly what you just suggested there is what I did want to talk about. Where it's like, would you ever play Winter Orb that says you're only going to tap 1 land per turn?
So I did pull an Elish Norn recently, and I did have a moment where I was like, wow, do I want to build this deck? And so maybe I would play it in Elish Norn if I really wanted to go hardcore.
You do Winter Orb?
Well, maybe. I don't know. I would have, I don't know. I don't know.
I guess Winter Orb paired up with an Urza is the really mean
way to play it. Like I don't know if I would. Probably no. Like honestly, I'm not a stax player. Like I don't know. Clearly, I don't know enough about it where I would know what I'd even do with that. I think there are stacks elements. Like I'd play LS Norm probably,
Yeah.
just because I think she's cool and I like blinking and stuff.
And she has the other upside where you're not just purely doing it.
Yeah, it's not hard stacks. It's like you can get rid of her. Maybe I'd put some other white stack stuff in there as well. I don't know, but for me, it's like I'm more of probably a pillow forter and then stacks kind of guy. Like I would probably want to like do something that like gives me a defense, and so I'm staxing you out of defense almost like pillow forting, kind of creating myself a little bit of
play
time.
a couple counter spells that your removal doesn't work on me, stuff like that.
Yeah, but I don't think that you could ever catch me playing like hard stacks.
Because like I told you, like I like Gaddock Teague, who is like the only thing he does.
I don't even think he's that bad. Like was it 4 mana or 4 power creatures, or was it both?
4 mana non-creature spells.
Okay.
So you think about it's not that bad, and it's not, but it's like
it is bad, but
it's gonna turn off,
your big spells.
10 to 30% of all your opponent's decks probably, and then more depending on what they're playing.
Like for me, I'm thinking like the deck that I would play that would be like Yuriko, because I'm like, I have huge spells in that, but I'm not using them for that case, so it'd be like almost like.
But it would be frustrating because you're like, oh, I have this omniscience in my
and I
hand,
can't cast it,
and I have the mana for it. I just can't. I outright can't. It's a dead card in my hand.
So what would you think is like maybe going too far with stacks versus Blood Moon?
I would draw the line at like the Winter Orb combo, because you're kind of like. And again, if you play Winter Orb with an Urza, where you're gaining so much advantage that within 2 turns you're probably going to win the game, that's okay. But it does hit that point where it's like no one's doing anything but me. And so it's like that maybe I wouldn't play. I'm okay with the Gaddock Teague because you could remove it and then have access to your spells.
What about
again.
like Atraxa? Because I know there's Atraxa stacks decks.
Yeah, so...
Because that's infect stacks.
Yeah,
which I know we talked a lot about in the past. I've been a lot of hate against that, like infect, and then the way you win is through infect. The way you're also winning is blocking everybody from doing things.
Yeah, I mean that's fine for me for the most part. I mean, infect's just kind of like it's like we talked about. Infect stacks almost would want to do the mass land destruction route because you're like, let me just not let you let's keep it in the early game as long as possible. So is mass
okay? And maybe I'm getting into stupid side conversations here, but like, is mass destruction? What is stacks? Like, what defines the boundaries of stacks?
It's so I guess it's based off a card called Smoke Stacks, which
I have.
You have a copy of that?
Yeah, I have a copy of Smoke Stacks.
Smoke Stack or Smoke Stack singular.
Excuse me. Maybe
Let
not.
me pull that up real quick. So it is at the beginning of your upkeep. It's a artifact.
Yep.
You may put a suit counter. On Smokestack at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player sacrifices a permanent for each soot counter on Smokestack.
I have that card, and I was looking at that, and I didn't think it was that famous.
It's so it has a whole strategy surrounding it, or name.
Well, it was in the 30th anniversary, so I knew it was obviously a competition winner, but I didn't know it was that.
It's been reprinted from a secret layer. It's on the list, things along those lines. So it's anything that kind of gives you those vibes. It's like I said, it's adding rules to the game to restrict your opponents, that your deck is built to handle those rules that theirs isn't.
Okay.
And I like the idea of it.
Just turning off stuff.
Just saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, for me, it does kind of stem from like you have these decks where you're like, man, how do I beat a landfall deck? And the answer is maybe not what you want it to be, but it exists and you can do it.
I would play the Smokestacks. That would be fun.
That one sucks.
I have it, and I feel I was thinking about like what do I do with that?
I mean, you play it in I could play it in my Marchesa deck, and
that
I'm
would
sacking
be
my
so
stuff
good.
with 1/1 counters. Comes back anyways. Put more counters on him. I'm gonna get him back every single time.
That's actually really good.
Yeah, it sucks for everyone else though.
It does suck for everybody else
because it's also permanence.
Yeah.
So because I'm sacrificing the same thing over and over again, but like eventually people are gonna lose lands. People are gonna lose, like,
because
you're playing
everybody
your
has to
commander
put one on something, right? Like every turn.
At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a soot counter on it. So the first turn rotation, it doesn't do anything. Second rotation, everyone sacks one thing. Third rotation, everyone sacks 2 things. And as long as no one blows that thing up, it just spins and snowballs and gets less and less fun.
That's an awesome card. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, definitely. And it's not overly expensive. Can't imagine why.
Yeah.
You can buy it for $4.99 at carnkingdom.com.
We are not sponsored.
Not a sponsor.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. Stax is fine, I guess. I don't know. Like the more I play Magic,
You can do it.
the more I play Magic, the more I've stopped arguing for certain things because I'm like, people are just gonna do it, and then you just have to deal with it, and then you just play the game, and I'm like, that's fine. I think the only time that like I feel like I've rage quit for much different reasons in this game, so I don't think Stax is gonna really push me over the edge. Like
That's fair.
I definitely feel like I rage quit more when I just can't do anything. Like I can't get anything going.
Rage quit in my experience mostly over when you make a mistake.
Yeah, when I make a mistake, I want to.
When you're like, I had a path to victory, I fumbled it. It's all on me. That's when you rage quit more than.
I've left. I have. There has been one time where I lost a game and I left the house without saying goodbye. Not my own house. This is at your house at the time. I walked out. I was vowing the week. I genuinely considered. I was like, I'm done with Magic because this is stressing me out so much that I can't handle this anymore. But that's the peak Magic. It's when you hate your life so much, your whole week is ruined.
Yeah.
Because of a mistake you made.
Yeah.
But hey, maybe Stax can recreate that for you every week.
Yeah, maybe it can, and that's the feeling that I hope to instill in all of my closest friends and family.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to play Stax, let your friend group know.
I do think a lot of this can be avoided, where it's like if you just come out and say, "Hey guys." Mm-hmm. I'm doing something new. I've built 10 decks. They all are somewhat similar. Like I'm trying something new. It's a mass land destruction deck. I know that is daunting. I have ways where I'm going to try and win quick. I'm not just going to try and make everyone hate their lives, but like just having that rule zero discussion ahead of time and being okay with it, making sure everyone's aware of what that means.
I've also found that something that we have found peace on, like I think you probably would agree with this, hopefully, is that we as a group have decided that like you should be building decks for just our play group. This could be different for everybody, but our group is turn 8 wins. Like if you are trying to currently, like we could talk about maybe we want to all bring that down to turn 6. I don't know, maybe we do, but like as a group, I think we all, maybe more so than others, will build for turn 8 wins or expect it to win on turn 8.
I can honestly say, and this is maybe unique to me, I don't know, I have not one time when building a deck considered what turn I thought I was going to win on.
But they win on turn 8.
Yeah, just because that's how much I can afford, I guess.
And I think that for you, and that's why I say more or less for some people, because for you, maybe it's like, oh no, my price point gets me to turn 8 wins.
Yeah.
But my intention when I'm building when I was building Atraxa, there was cards that I'm like, this could speed this up, and like I could bring this down to turn 6, turn 7, because you absolutely can do that. It's not that hard.
Do it then.
Spend the money, right? Like but I don't want to, because I felt like turn 8 felt really good because it's like competition still, and then there's like a pre-con could theoretically still exist in that place. I don't know. I think that's been a cool place to be. I want us to be able to win. I want people to feel good about winning. I want people to not feel like they're a bad person because they came here building a deck to win, but I also want to have fun.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like my thought process behind it. And I think if you kind of like, if you as a group can try to like figure out where you are winning statistically, and then like base your decks on that just a little bit, right? It's not hard. Buy mana box, do the play test thing, and just see where your deck wins on without being interacted with. And there you go. That's what turn it averages
add
on.
Like 3 turns.
Yeah. And then just average that out every time you play it. And it's fine.
And I think, I think this is where we landed with our previous episode too about mulligans and stuff like that. Just know what your deck exists to do, and know what that means you want out of the night. If you're gonna come in and play Stax, just know that means that you're playing that deck to win the game.
Yeah. And
just be okay to like have that conversation. Like, hey, I'm playing a powerful deck, and it's Stax, so like you all need to like play a deck. Well, you all need to do this, but like if it's okay for me to play this deck, you're all going to want to play your powerful decks that have a chance to fight this.
Yeah, just communicating like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Which has been a common thing I've been seeing, is people being like, oh yeah, like I'm having trouble finding a play group right now that's like more chill, because everybody wants to do this and I don't really want to do that. And it's like, well, yeah, I want to build a play group that is universal, that we can switch from a pre-con to Staxy decks if we want, you know?
Yeah. And again, just communicating that rule zero combos.
I feel like our group is the perfect group. I think we have developed really well thought out ways to play this game. I'm actually really impressed. Like I'm looking online at how other play groups play. I like our play group a lot. I think we've found a really cool place right now.
Yeah.
And I think you should be jealous because we communicate a lot about what we want for each other and what we want this experience to be. And then we nail it. Like, I feel like it sometimes it's rough, but most of the time it's great.
And if you are interested in joining our play group,
you can't be a part of it.
You can send us a message through our website at XX.
I can't have that promoted. Oh, great.
Do it on your school Wi-Fi.
You're not allowed to. All right. Well, I'm really pumped about Stax. And I'm really excited to see some mass land destruction now that we've given, in a way, our group permission to do it.
Yeah.
So here we are.
I've given myself permission.
You've given you permission to do
I am
it.
not at all signing off that anyone should do it to me.
Yeah. No, that would be sucky.
No,
So
I'll do it to other people though.
well, this has been great, Ben. I'm glad we've been taking on some really tough conversations. Maybe we'll try to talk about something that's like more or less maybe more black and white. I don't know. But these have been tough conversations because they're just so varied depending on what you're.
No, definitely. We'll go a little bit later next week. We'll talk about the JFK assassination or something like that, you know.
Well, this is another thing that we've been talking about. It's like we've been really trying to get Jeff Bezos on the show, and he's been skirting me a little bit.
So maybe we could talk about like child labor laws.
Well, yeah, because and I think he would be like a great first guest.
Yeah.
One, because he's a secret sponsor of this series. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
This right here?
He paid for it.
This is a Dell.
And he paid for it.
He did.
Right out of that Amazon money. Yeah, it's great. So thanks, Jeff. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here without you. And so we would love you to come on. But he's struggling with you a little bit. So I'm trying to talk him into it.
Clash, but I still have a lot of love for him.
Yeah. You have more hair as well, which is like always an issue. If you lost the beard, I think you'd be a little more chill with it.
But then all my chins come out to play, and that's a whole conversation. But anyways.
Well, if you've watched this whole episode, we appreciate it, and you can subscribe right now. And also, if you're listening on Spotify, thanks so much. Why don't you hit the follow button so you can keep up with the Bad Deal podcast, which is only going to get better. Because, baby, we are heading to episode 10.
Bezos money just keeps rolling in.
5 more episodes, and Bezos is going to give us a little bit of a price increase. And, man.
Hashtag buy Prime.
Whew, yeah.
Hashtag Amazon Prime.
Yep. Just get it all in the system.
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. We love you. Mwah.
See ya.